Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to add the Chairman's thanks to you for all of these hearings over the last number of years. The 13 hearings, I think I've been sitting with you, Mr. Chairman, for every single one of those hearings. Everything from spinach to peanut butter to jalapeno peppers to meat to nuts. Pretty much the entire American diet has been under scrutiny the last few years. And I just have one question, and the question that I have is, when is the Senate going to pass the very fine food safety bill that this House passed over a year ago? I don't think it's any excuse that one senator can hold up the bill, but if that is the excuse, then I would add to Chairman Waxman's demand that Senator Coburn release his hold on this bill. But beyond that, I think the Senate should stay in session until they pass this bill. The reason is, if we don't, we're going to be sitting here every 6 months, just like we have been for the last 4 years. And the problem with that, it's not just about us passing the legislation, it's about people like the witnesses who are sitting here today, Ms. Lewis and Mrs. Lobato. And, you know, I want to welcome all of you and say how glad I am that you're putting a human face on this again. I particularly have to welcome the Lobatos because they've been family friends of my family's, Mr. Chairman, for many, many years. We won't say how long because then we'll have to reveal our ages. But thank you for coming to talk to us about what's going on here. You know, we can fix this problem. This egg outbreak, which is outrageous, could have been minimized. I mean, aside from the conditions at the hen houses and everything else, if this bill had been law, several things in this legislation could have mitigated this problem. It took 3 months before this voluntary recall, and there were thousands of Americans that fell ill before we determined what the source of contamination was. There are 3 components to the legislation that this committee and the House passed that are now in the Senate bill that would have prevented this. Number 1, under our legislation, the FDA would be able to get the records to show where the contamination came from. Number 2, traceability. This was a provision that I worked to get into the legislation, which would allow contaminated products to be quickly traced from the field, or in this case, the hen house, to the fork. And that would greatly decrease the amount of time it would have taken for us to identify the source of the contamination. And the third thing is, the FDA would have now mandatory recall authority. So if the producers themselves didn't recall the product, then the FDA could have. All of these things together would have applied in this situation if this bill had become law. And so frankly, Mr. Chairman, we can't wait till after the election. We can't wait till the next Congress starts. We need to make this bill law now. And I would urge every single person who's here or who's watching this to call their senators and urge them to enact this law before we leave.